stand amazed in the presence of Jesus the Nazarene, and I wonder how he could love me, a sinner condemned unclean, singing how marvelous, how wonderful, and my song shall ever be. How marvelous, how wonderful is my Savior's love for me. For me it was in the garden, he prayed, not my will but thine. He had no tears for his own griefs, but sweat drops of blood for mine, singing how marvelous, how wonderful, and my song shall ever be. How marvelous, how wonderful is my Savior's love for me. He took my sins and my sorrows, he made them his very own. He bore the burden to Calvary and suffered and died alone, singing how marvelous, how wonderful, and my song shall ever be. How marvelous, how wonderful is my Savior's love for me. Singing how marvelous, how wonderful, and my song shall ever be. How marvelous, how wonderful is my Savior's love for me.
Good morning. Now, you can't see me, obviously, but you can see the room that I'm in when I'm going to talk to you this morning. It's the front room of the accommodation that I'm in. And there's a reason that I want to show it to you, because I want it to be a proof. Oh, here I am. You can see I'm not very good at this sort of thing. Proof that actually I too am on a journey. I've been asked to speak about journeys. Now, this isn't some theoretical thing for my wife and I. This is a very real situation that we're in. I used to be a minister of a church in Bexley, and in 2011 my wife and I were convinced and spoken to by God about the need to step down in order to do church differently. We wanted to do church for the existing church, as church alongside the existing church for the unchurched. You will know as well as I do that there are so many people out there that aren't put off by the message of Jesus, but the format and structure and style of church and the timing of it and the Sunday morning, it just means that it doesn't work for them, and they feel that they want to embrace things differently. And we were convinced that God was calling us in order to do something different, something alongside the existing church to complement what it was doing. And so we took the huge step of faith to step down from where we were believing God had called us to do something else. I'd love to be able to say, and then it all opened up and the ministry developed out of all recognition, and it was all a wonderful success. But you know as well as I do that sometimes it doesn't work as clearly as that. And in my reflections in recent days, I've taken a lot of comfort, not just recent days, from the life of Joseph. You know, he was a man who had a vision, he had a dream, but it was many years before it became a reality. And so I've taken great comfort from that. Ruth and I, having stepped down, met with all sorts of ministers and all sorts of regional ministers, hoping to see this vision take root alongside an existing church or group of churches and to become a reality. That wasn't the case. End of 2012, we came down to Torquay to visit family and friends because we're both from Torquay. And it was there that I saw a job at EF Academy. You will know EF Language School, the summer students, but there's also an academy which was to provide a British education for international students, and they would take A-levels and GCSEs. And I was convinced, even though it seemed to be strange sort of mixture, that this was the thing I ought to do. And so I applied for the job and was accepted. And I worked there until August of last year. Ruth, my wife, cared for her parents. Her father passed away 18 months ago, and mum went into a care home. And since then, Ruth has worked at the school too as an admin assistant in the medical bay. We were both made redundant in August of last year, and we thought, right, now we can finally see the dream become a reality. 6 months down the road, Ruth and I are still now unemployed, living in temporary accommodation because we don't have a home of our own, and seeking the Lord. So when we talk about journeys, I know all about that. And I want to share with you something of what's spoken to me. Now, I want to read to you just a brief reading from Genesis chapter 46, verses 1 to 4. It's right in the heart of Joseph's journey, but it's about Jacob, you know, journeys within journeys. And we're all doing that. We've all got a personal journey. We've all got a church journey. We've all got a national church journey, the global church journey, and then the big kingdom picture of what God's doing. We're all involved in different aspects of a journey, and Jacob was no different. So let me read to you from Genesis 46, verses 1 to 4. So Israel, that's Jacob, set out with all that was his, and when he reached Beersheba, he offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. And God spoke to Israel in a vision at night and said, Jacob, Jacob. He didn't call him Israel, he called him Jacob. It's interesting. Here I am, he replied. I am the God of your father, he said. Don't be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I will make you into a great nation there. I will go down to Egypt with you, and I will surely bring you back again. And Joseph's own hand will close your eyes. And then just a verse from Matthew chapter 15, where Jesus has been teaching the crowd who were following him. And he says to his disciples that I have compassion for these people. They've already been with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. I don't want to send them away hungry, or they may collapse on the way. Now, as I read these verses today, I am reminded of just how well I am known, how well we are known. He doesn't just know about me, he knows me intimately and deeply, just as he knew Jacob. He knew just how he was feeling. He knew what it means for a person like Jacob to feel vulnerable, to somehow or other feel open to being wounded and to being hurt. Jacob was that person, and I am too. And I imagine some of you are too. You see, God knows what it means for human beings to have strong feelings within themselves that can paralyze them and make them want to retreat and withdraw. Whether it's about the future of our church, our own future, where we're going to live, how we're going to live, God understands the fear that can be present in our hearts. But I am reminded today when I read these verses, these few verses of the way God deals with Jacob, that he is tender-hearted and compassionate, and he chooses to come to the aid of people like Jacob. He is our God. He is Jacob's God. He comes to the aid of Jacob and he says to him, don't be afraid. You can see in these verses the weakness and fragility of Jacob. You see, he may be an old man by now. old men who's made catastrophic mistakes, who showed favoritism to Joseph that caused all sorts of problems. But he never stopped being God's man. But he may be an old man, but inside there's still a little boy who's fearful. And at this moment in time, what the little boy needs is his father's hand. And God recognizes this fact. He comes to him and says, don't be afraid, Jacob. You see, sometimes we need chivying along, and at other times we need comfort and compassion to strengthen us. The trouble is so often we get it wrong. Either we do a lot of chivying when what's needed is comfort and strengthening, or we do a lot of comforting and strengthening when what we need to be doing is a bit of chivying. But God knows what is the best approach and always knows what the right approach is. So by now, even though Jacob is really known as Israel, that's the name that God's already given to him, God comes to him and speaks to him as Jacob. It's because God knows that the person that had come to the fore at this time was actually Jacob and not Israel. Israel, the new man that Jacob was, had receded into the distance. The little boy was fearful and apprehensive, and he was still called Jacob. You see, for Jacob, what lies before him is as unsettling as much as it is unknown. And it's unsettling because it is unknown, just like me. I don't know what my future holds. Perhaps you don't know what your future holds. Lockdown has thrown everything up into the air. But what we don't need, I would suggest, is chivying along. Come on, make a bit more effort. What we don't need is slapping across the chops to make a bit more effort. What we need is reassurance and comfort. Jacob needed that, and because of that, God comes to him to strengthen him and not to chivy him. And it encourages me because it makes me realise that as I reach the halfway point of my journey, the Beersheba of my journey, where I stop overnight in my own personal journey, and as you reach your own personal Beersheba in your journey, and as the church reaches its personal Beersheba, where it's wondering what the future holds, God comes and says, don't be afraid, just like he did for Jacob. I'm reminded today that the God of Jacob and the God of Neil Abbott is the God of us all. And this God is gentle and caring. He feels for people. He has compassion for those who are travelling not only with him, but also because of him. The crowd had travelled with Jesus and because of Jesus, and he had compassion on them. And Jesus, the God who had compassion on the crowd who was with him, is the God of Jacob, of course. It's not someone different. It's the same God. And he's the same today. He has compassion for those who are with him, who travel with him and because of him. That means he has compassion for me. He has compassion for you as an individual, for your family, and he has a compassion for Roselands Baptist Church. You see, he notices the crowd. He notices their needs and is determined to help them. He's also the one who turns up at our Beershebas with comfort to spare. He comes not with words, not food, but the effect is the same. He comes to provide inner sustenance in order to strengthen his fearful children. You see, he knew where Beersheba was, and he knew where Jacob was, and he met with him there. And he knows where you are too. He knows where I am. Not only geographically, but also emotionally and psychologically. He knows how to reach us and exactly what to provide us with. See, as Jacob was stepping towards the unknown, God steps towards him and meets with him and speaks to him of good things. A blessing that will turn him into a great nation, and of being there with him down in Egypt. God speaks to Jacob and fills his mind with pictures that turn the place that is filling him with fear into the place that will fill him with joy. All of a sudden, the future has been filled with God and with his activity. And, it may be just me, but I'm convinced it's not. I need to hear this, not just once, but over and over again, because I find it easy to imagine my future as the place where God isn't, the place where I will be all alone, the place where God will be absent and all his provision will dry up.
But that is not the case. Time and time again in this last year, as I've wrestled with my own situation, I feel as if God has come through his word and said, Neil, don't be fearful of the future. Just as I was with Jacob, so I will be with you. Jacob's God comes to Jacob's descendants and reminds them, and therefore reminds us, that he will be there in the future, in my life, in our lives, in the life of Roselands Baptist Church, for blessing and not for punishment, for joy and not for sorrow. The bruised reed he will not break, the smouldering wick he will not snuff out. He's always got new plans. See, just as Egypt lay before Jacob when he was in Beersheba, so my personal Egypt, the place that I am being called to, lies before me. But just like Jacob, and perhaps just for you, perhaps for us all, it lies hidden. You can sort of sketch the vague outline of the Egypt of our futures. We can see the sky shimmering in the distance. You can just about see the contours of its landscape. You can sense that it's there in the future, just over the horizon. But it lies hidden, covered by a cloud of unknowing. For me, it's where I will actually live and how I will actually live and what I will do to actually live. They're all unknown. And it's into the realm of unknown that fear and apprehension like to assume squatters' rights. But today, Jesus, who's the God of Jacob, moves in instead and kicks the squatters out and says, no, I am in the future. So today, as we stand before our altars of praise in our own personal frontier towns of Beersheba, we might not have got details of the future, but we do have God. Today, the God of Jacob, the God who is Jesus, comes and stands with me, comes and stands with you, comes and stands with Roselands Baptist Church to let his apprehensive children know that he is here with us in our Beershebas, and he will be with us in our Egypt too. The squatters who want to make us fearful have been served notice. See, there are no hidden future locations that he's excluded from. There are no hidden future moments that he won't have access to. There are no future scenarios that will catch him unawares. I am reminded today that we have God, and not just any old God. We have the God who is Jesus. He's with me and he's with you today in our Beershebas. Right here, today, thoughts of the future may want to come and try and make me fearful, make you fearful. Thoughts of the future might want to calm and disturb us and unsettle us. But the God who is Jesus is here too. In a few short words, this God highlights to Jacob and to us his faithfulness in the past, for he tells Jacob that he's the God of Isaac. He deals with the present, for he addresses Jacob's current feelings and apprehensions there in Beersheba, and he deals with the future, for he speaks to Jacob about what will happen for good in Egypt. I am reminded, therefore, today of the same things in my life. He reminds me of his faithfulness in the past. He speaks to my potential fears and apprehensions in the present, and reminds me of his presence and blessing in the future. The same is true for you. He comes to us today. And in this way, our Beershebas, our halfway place on our journey, is changed from a place of concern to a place of confidence. But Jesus is there, mighty as always, to save. It's not just my Beersheba and your Beersheba, the place we're in today, that's changed. Egypt is changed too. Our future, my future, Roseland's future, is changed into a place of future wonder, for he has promised to go down to Egypt with us and to make us into a great nation. Our God promises a good future with him. It's wonderful, it's remarkable, it's true, which means that today we can worship and we can rest. For here in my Beersheba I am not alone. And tomorrow in Egypt, I will not be alone either. Amen. Thank you for letting me speak to you. Bye-bye.
You call me out upon the wall. great unknown, where feet may fail, and there I find you in the mystery, in oceans deep. My faith will stand, and I will call upon your name, and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace, for I am yours. You are mine. Your grace abounds in deepest waters. Your sovereign hand will be my guide. My feet may fail and fear surrounds me. You've never failed, and you won't stop now. So I will call upon your name, and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace, for I am yours, and you are mine. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my My soul will rest in